Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be revisiting my ranking system. So I made this video, it's actually one of my first videos I made, probably in the first 10 or so, where I went through and kind of talked about my rating system and how I rate and rank my books. Now, not too much has changed in the time since then, other than I think I'm much better at talking and making videos, and I do think it's important for me to talk about these things so that you can see when I talk about a book if maybe some of the things that you like and I like kind of go together. And I think it is also important that obviously star ratings are so ambiguous and mean different things to different people that I kind of want to be able to refer back to certain videos and keep this fresh in people's minds who watch my reviews so that they know that when I say what a 3-star is, that they kind of understand what that means. Now, obviously, I do try to reiterate that anytime I'm talking about a book, but I think it's just kind of one of those important things to talk about because it's important, not that you necessarily align with what I think about a book, but that you have an idea about what makes certain books and what are examples of certain, rankings for certain people. I know there are booktubers who I follow who I have extremely opposite opinions of, which I think is just as useful as people who I agree with on everything. So I think there's room in there, and getting different perspectives is always super important. And I mentioned that I read for enjoyment, and so that's kind of where my ranking system lies. So a 1-star for me means I hated it, which is a very strong emotion. So I don't have very many 1-star rankings. 2-star means I didn't really like it. I have more 2-stars, obviously. 3-star means I just liked it. It was fine. It was a good book. 4-star means I really liked it, kind of on that border of loving it. And then a 5-star is I loved it. And since I started keeping track of my reading in, I think, 2019, I have 18 5-stars. So in 6 years, 18 5-stars, about 3 a year. That's kind of my ranking system. So I am a pretty hard grader in general. I will say, I know not everybody likes that people do rating systems based on their enjoyment, because books offer so much more than just enjoyment. They can challenge you, push you, propose ideas that you've never experienced before. And I do think there is definitely merit in that. And I think there are channels who do that way better than I will ever be able to. So that's not really my goal when I review a book. It is based solely on enjoyment. And we can talk about the merits of that and, down below in the comments if you think that that's not the best way to do something. But that is how I'm going to do it, and that's going to be how I continue to do it moving forward. I will say I also don't do half-star ratings. I think makes sense with how my ranking is. I either liked it or really liked it or didn't like it. It's not that hard for me to kind of decipher and put it in. I will say I do actually rank every individual book that I read against everything as well. So I have every year a spreadsheet where I rank every book I've read that year, and then I have a spreadsheet for my overall rankings where I rank it against everything I have read. So that is always kind of fun for me to go back and look through and kind of compare and contrast against things. I will also say that yearly sheet, I don't go back and touch it after the fact, and my overall sheet is something that's kind of more of a living document. I'll go in and, maybe 2 years later, I don't feel the same way about a book. I'll move that ranking around, but I won't touch the year I actually read it because I kind of like to freeze that moment in time. And one other last note before I go into some examples of what stars I gave certain books. I don't rate nonfiction reading. Not that I read a whole lot of nonfiction books, but it just feels weird to rate something. I guess I could because I do it off enjoyment, but it feels weird to read a narrative of life of Frederick Douglass and be like, that's a 4-star book. I really liked it. I don't know. Just feels weird to do that. So I don't do that. I just keep the track of those somewhere else, and they're not ranked. But I do also just want to mention that with the nonfiction stuff. So like I said, let's move into some of the examples of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5-star books that I have. So in the 1-star category, like I said, that means I hated it. And this doesn't happen very often. I have 2 hated books since I started keeping track of everything. So this is not something that I can really give too many examples of. One, I will say, I hated Circe by Madeline Miller. I think it's one of the worst books I have ever read in my entire life. It was like I wanted a lemonade and somebody spritzed lemonade scented fragrance in the air, and then I took a sip of water and they thought that was lemonade. That is how I feel about Circe and what it was. But I totally understand. People love that book. I totally get it, but just for whatever reason, that is a book that did not work for me. It was the worst way for me to experience that story. So yeah, that is just an example of a book I really did not connect with. And if you did, I'm so glad. I'm so happy for you. I know that I am in the minority here. I know that I'm wrong in this opinion, but that is just how I felt about that book. In my 2-star category, you will find books that I really do think that there are some really good merits to, and I understand why people like them a lot more. Obviously, I understand why people like Circe, but sometimes I think of books that I give a 2-star for, ones that I didn't really like, is a lot of times it's more of a me thing or a timing thing where it just wasn't the right time for a certain book. The best example I have of that is the book Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield. This is the best book I have given the lowest rating to, I think. And I mean that in, I can see why this is somebody's favorite book. I can see why people absolutely adore this historical fiction book. But for me, it just wasn't it. I don't know if that's a historical fiction thing, if it was just a this book thing, this subject matter. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was sold to me wrong. I've talked about this book a decent amount for a book that I didn't really like, but it's just an example of a book that there were just pieces of it that didn't click to me. I didn't get that enjoyment out of it, but I can see all of the technical aspects that make it a quote unquote great book, and I can see the merit behind it and why I think it can resonate with so many people. Moving on to the 3 stars, I have a couple examples here. So Lord of the Rings. Obviously, Lord of the Rings is a beloved series by so many people, and the historical impact and significance of it, I think, elevates it so high on a different kind of list, right? But if we're going based off my enjoyment, it's a series that I liked. I thought it was good. We'll go ahead and include The Hobbit in here as well. I thought all 4 of those books were fine and good, and I'm glad I read them. But I think there is some confusion when I say I just liked it. I only gave those a 3-star rating because of the historical impact and how important it is to the genre. I understand that it's like a foundational building block of fantasy, but that doesn't mean that when I read it, the enjoyment I got out of it was at the level of somebody else. And so I get very divisive comments about The Lord of the Rings and 3-star ratings just in general, because people feel like a 3-star rating is bad, and to me, it's not. It's still good. It's a book that I would recommend to a lot of people. It's a book that I'm glad I read. I just think I have a more hardcore rating system than a lot of other people. Another book that falls into this category is Jurassic Park. I think that is a great, it's not great. It's a great book. I think it's written really well and everything, but it's another one where my enjoyment was just a good time. I liked it, but it's not a book I sit and think about all the time, and it doesn't cross that threshold for me. Now, when we get to the 4-star, I think my 4-star for a lot of people is what a lot of people consider a 5-star. It's a book that I really liked. It's a book that I really connected with. It's a book that I'll probably think about a lot or a decent amount. It's one where if somebody, asks me about it, I'll probably say I loved it, but I don't mean that in the way that I actually loved it. It's just kind of, the vernacular of talking about books. But these books are something that I'm so glad I read. They leave me thinking, and just all kinds of things. These are books that I'll recommend. And some of the examples of that is basically every Wheel of Time book. It's my favorite fantasy series of all time, yet only one book got a 5-star rating from me. It's one of those series that the pieces, or the whole is greater than all of its individual pieces. I have most of the James Bond books here as well. I think of the 14, I think probably 12 of them are 4 stars. I really liked those books. I had a great time with them. I think it's another great example. Most of the Cosmere falls in here for me as well. I think most of those books are really well done, and I really, really like them, and I'm glad I read them. As you can kind of see the trend here, pretty much any long series, The Expanse would also be included here in this category. Any long series that I've read probably falls into this category because it's just where most of those really good books that I've read end up, because I'm so exclusive with my 5-star rankings. Dune is also here. For Whom the Bell Tolls is also here. Frankenstein is also a 4-star book for me. Robinson Crusoe is also a 4-star book for me. So there's a wide variety of books that are inside of this category. So I hope some of those maybe help you figure out some of the things that I might like. And then let's go ahead and talk about some 5-star books. So these are the books that are very special for me. These are books where I feel a certain level of like an emotional feeling towards a book that to me is very special and doesn't happen a lot. And for most people, if I had to equate this is like talking about somebody's like top 5 favorite books. Like that is the level of feeling I have to get to give a 5-star. And like I said, I think that's where some of the disconnect comes with people when I say that's a 3-star book for me. That still means it's good. And so I think that's just part of that disconnect. So like I said, there's only 18 5-stars that I have given out since I started keeping track. A couple examples of those is Boy's Life by Robert McCannon. That book really deeply connected to me, especially at the end of that book. I'm not going to say what happened, but the ending of that book, there were just some things that happened that I deeply connected to. Pet Sematary is another one recently where it hit me on such an emotional level that I don't know. It's just one of those special moments in reading that those are the moments I'm looking for, and that's kind of what a 5-star represents. A Man Called Ove is another one where, man, the emotional gambit you run through in that book, and just, I think it's another one of those that I read at a perfect time, and that it's almost a perfect book. It's probably my 3rd favorite book of all time. The Jungle by Upton St. Clair. I know this is a book that gets talked about in schools a lot, but when I read it later on in life, I thought it was beautiful and impactful and showed the struggle of immigration in that time. And once again, it's those impactful moments. And I'll be remiss not to mention Death's End, which is the last book in the 3 Body Problem series, A Remembrance of Earth's Past. My favorite book of all time. It's a book I think about, I don't know, I don't want to be dramatic when I say every day, but it's a book that I probably do think about every day. It's a series that in general like reframed the way I look at the universe and the things around us, and it's just that special. And so that's what a 5-star, that is the goalpost that I have for a 5-star ranking. So if you have any questions about my rankings, definitely let me know down below in the comments. I'll be more than happy to give some more examples if you want. I don't want to list every book I've read, and just, you know, to give you an idea of some of the things I like and don't like. But let me know what your ranking system is. Do you think star ratings are important at all? I know there's a lot of people who don't, that it's a very arbitrary thing to do. For me, it does help me kind of organize my books and everything, so I'm something I'm going to continue to do, and that I kind of enjoy it, especially the individual ranking. Maybe at some point I'll go through all of the books I've read and show you my ranking for everything. But let me know any of your thoughts down below in the comments, and as always, have a good one.